A struggling writer discovers a mysterious online forum dedicated to a single, unfinished creepypasta, a story that seems to rewrite itself, and whose words have a terrifying power to manifest in the real world. My name is David, and I was a writer, or at least I used to be. I hadn't written anything of value in months. Writer's block had me in its icy grip, and every attempt to put words on the page felt like forcing blood from a stone. I spent my days trawling the internet, searching for inspiration, for anything that could break through the creative drought. That's how I found it. It was a link buried deep within a thread on an obscure horror forum. A thread about unfinished stories, abandoned projects, the ones that got away. The link led to a website I'd never seen before, a minimalist, almost amateurish page with a stark, black background and plain white text. The site was dedicated to a single creepypasta, simply titled The Blank Page. The story was incomplete, a fragment really. It described a character, much like myself, a writer, who discovers a blank page that seems to have a life of its own. The page fills with words that describe horrific events. And then, those events begin to happen in the real world. The writing was raw, unpolished, but it had a certain power, a visceral quality that drew me in. It was as if the author wasn't just writing a story, but channeling something dark and ancient and terrifying. What was most intriguing, however, was the forum attached to the story. It was filled with posts from users who claimed to have experienced strange occurrences after reading The Blank Page. They spoke of nightmares, hallucinations, objects moving on their own, and a growing sense of dread that seemed to cling to them like a shroud. Some users speculated that the story was cursed, that the act of reading it somehow opened a doorway to something evil. Others believed that the author was intentionally using the story to manipulate readers, to somehow manifest the horrors described within its pages. I dismissed it all as internet gudba rumors, the ramblings of overactive imaginations. But I couldn't deny the story's power. It had gotten under my skin, and the blank page, the unfinished ending, seemed to call to me, daring me to complete it. I started to write. I told myself it was just an exercise, a way to break through my writer's block. I would finish the story, give it a proper ending, and then move on. But as I wrote, something changed. The words flowed from my fingers with an unnatural ease, as if they were writing themselves. I described the writer in the story, my fictional counterpart, descending into madness as the blank page consumed his life. I wrote about the horrors he unleashed, the monsters he created with his words. And then, the lines began to blur. I started to experience the same things I was writing about. I would see things out of the corner of my eye, hear whispers in the silence, feel a cold dread that seemed to emanate from the very words I had written. My apartment, once a familiar sanctuary, became a place of fear. Shadows seemed to move on their own. Objects disappeared and reappeared in different locations. I would wake up in the middle of the night, my heart pounding, convinced that something was watching me from the darkness. I tried to stop writing, to delete the story, to erase the words that seemed to have taken on a life of their own. But I couldn't. It was as if the story had a hold on me, as if it were compelling me to finish it no matter the cost. The forum dedicated to the blank page was in a frenzy. Users were reporting increasingly disturbing events that mirrored the horrors I had described in my additions to the story. It was as if my words were becoming reality, as if the story were somehow manifesting the things I wrote. One user, Nightmare Scribe, posted about a creature he had seen in his home, a creature that perfectly matched the description of a monster I had created for the story. Another user, lost in the words, claimed that she was being haunted by whispers, whispers that spoke the very words I had written. Panic set in. I realized that I had unleashed something terrible, something I couldn't control. I had to stop the story, to rewrite it, to undo the damage I had done. But the story wouldn't let me. Every time I tried to change it, to write a different ending, the words would twist and contort on the page, reverting back to the original narrative, to the horrifying path I had already set in motion. I was trapped, a prisoner of my own creation. I became a recluse, a hermit in my own apartment. I avoided the internet, avoided the forum, avoided anything that could remind me of the story. But it was no use. The story was everywhere. It was in my dreams, in my thoughts, in the very air I breathed. The manifestations became more intense. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. The shadows in my apartment seemed to deepen, to take on monstrous forms. The line between reality and fiction had completely dissolved. One night, I woke up to find a blank page lying on my desk. It was the same page from the story, the page that had started it all. It was calling to me, demanding to be filled. I knew then that I had a choice to make. I could continue to resist, to fight against the story's power, and risk being consumed by the horrors I had unleashed. Or I could give in, finish the story, and accept whatever fate awaited me. With trembling hands, I picked up a pen. The final part of the story is left intentionally blank. There are no words on the page, only a single, chilling instruction. Now it's your turn. Finish the story.